Hi everyone. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, Celine. How are you today?
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for this very kind invitation. And greetings to everyone from ANCD. Thank you.
I am so honored to host you today, really. I would like to welcome you and welcome all our guests to and audience to our third episode of the African Network of Sustainable Development Africa Shining Program. Today, our special guest is Ms Elif Selen Ay. Elif Selen Ay is an attorney at law. She graduated from Ankara University Law Faculty and pursued her ALM degree on international human rights law from University of Essex in England. She worked as a legal advisor in the Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. She worked in different operations of UNHCR, which is the UN Refugee Agency, more than 14 years now. She is the head of UNHCR field office in Istanbul and temporarily assigned in UNHCR Multi-Country Office in Washington D.C. as the regional protection officer. So today we will be talking with Celine about the current situation of refugees and asylum seekers during COVID-19 pandemic. So just before we can start, we should do some housekeeping. So if any one of our audience or viewers want to write a comment or question, they could do it by all means in the comment field in the Facebook field. If we will be sharing live this talk, and then we will discuss it later on at the end of the talk. So without any further ado, we'll start now. And I thank you so much, Celine, for accepting my invitation. And it's great having you today with us from Turkey.
Thank you
So,
so much. Thank you. It's my honor to be here, and I would like to thank everyone who's participating, especially you. We have been very close friends and close colleagues that we have been knowing each other from Frederick Naumann Foundation, and I'm really very honored to be amongst these colleagues and friends. Thank you very much for this kind invitation. Thank you.
you're welcome. It's an honor for us as well to receive you, and I can't wait to see you again because it's been a year that we haven't met, but we are meeting virtually anyway, so that will do.
Yes,
So,
hopefully.
so could you please introduce yourself to our viewers, Celine, so everybody will know you?
Excuse me, I could not hear you well. Can you tell again?
Could you please introduce yourself to our viewers, please?
Thank you very much, Hatice. I'm the Regional Protection Officer in UNHCR Office of Washington, D.C. on a temporary basis right now. And I'm overseeing some Latin American countries because of the Venezuela situation, the Venezuelan refugees there. And in general, I'm the head of field office in Istanbul. You introduced so well. Thank you so much. And I'm really very honored to be here. I'm working for refugees for a very long time. And our roads are crossing because we all try to improve the situation of vulnerable people in the world. Thank you very much, Adija.
All right. So you're working for the UNHCR, the head of the field office in Istanbul. Could you share with our audience what is your main job and what are your day-to-day duties running the office in general?
Yes, thank you very much, Hadija. Actually, we conduct lots of activities. I'm covering the northwest region of Turkey, which is composed of 11 cities, and it's neighboring to Greece and Bulgaria. And I'm overseeing 800,000 refugees, especially Syrian refugees, in my area. And our area of responsibility includes lots of activities. Actually, we do advocacy with the authorities, including governmental counterparts and donors, to improve the situation of refugees. We are streamlining UNHCR strategic priorities, global, regional, and country-specific policies in my region, and we're keeping the communication in our field with other field offices and other UN agencies. We work with the NGOs and the government very, very closely. And we are ensuring the coherence and efficiency of all office functions to respond well to refugees' concern, actually. And while boosting the team spirit and cooperation in the office, and we're trying to keep up the good teamwork because, as you know very well, we are in a very, very unique and unprecedented situation, and we're trying to keep up the good work and try to support refugees. So what we do is that we are trying to identify those who are in need of international protection, and we are trying to ensure that refugees in Turkey and in other places have access to basic rights. And for this reason, we do a lot of advocacy and supporting the governments and supporting NGOs. We have lots of partners. And as UNHCR, the lead agency in protection of refugees, we're trying to coordinate the efforts, actually, not only in Turkey, but throughout the world.
Okay, that's great. That's a lot of work for you to do, you know.
Thank
So, but
you.
um, you know that international displacement rose to record levels this past decade. So 1% of humanity is displaced. That means one in every 97 people in Earth. It's around 79 million people at the end of 2019 fled to other parts of their country or other across the border. These statistics are so shocking. So in some countries, people were forced to flee multiple times. Most of them fled conflict, violence, war, human rights abuses, and persecution, but also climate change and disasters that, like hunger and poverty, were causes for more complex emergencies. So, as Turkey is one of the top hosting countries of refugees and asylum seekers, could you please share with us an overview on the situation in Turkey, like including the statistics per nationality, or and including African nationals, because we in NSD we focus on Africa, and where they mainly live in Turkey, like in camps, shelters, or houses, or centers, and so on, and in which provinces in Turkey?
Right. It's a very, very good question, Hadija. I will try to answer you a bit in detail. But first, I would like to give you some statistics. As of August 2020, there are over 3.6 Syrian refugees in Turkey and close to 330,000 registered refugees and asylum seekers of other nationalities in Turkey, which means like we are hosting 4 million. Apart from Syrians, which is the majority, we have refugees from Afghanistan, Iraq, and Iran. And we have also hosting refugees from African countries. With over 500,000, Istanbul now hosts the highest number of refugees in Turkey. And after Istanbul, Syrian refugees are generally located in different provinces, especially in southeast of Turkey. 99% of Syrian refugees in Turkey live in urban and peri-urban contexts, whereas only 2% stay in temporary accommodation center. Temporary accommodation centers are actually the camps that we know of. And since 2018, the government of Turkey has been closing the camps. And they're trying to make their life easier with having a transition to the normal life, regular life, which as UNHCR, we're supporting this very much, because living in camps for, more than a year is really not a very, very good option. So what we're trying to do is that working together with the government and our NGOs, we're trying to ensure that the refugees in the camps are having a better and normal life. So it's good news that we don't have many refugees in the camps anymore. So as to the African refugees, the Turkish authorities does not provide a nationality breakdown for countries of origin other than Syrian nationalities. And the top 3 countries, which are Afghanistan, Iran, and Iraq, are the ones that we know of. But for the because we're not doing the registration of the asylum seekers anymore in Turkey, we don't know the exact numbers at the moment, but we therefore do not have the most up-to-date statistics, but I can give you some information on that. On the other hand, moving from the International Organization for Migration, which is our sister organization on migration, IOM's latest quarterly migrant presence monitoring report from 2020, we can conclude that asylum seekers and irregular migrants from Congo, Somalia, Central African Republic, Eritrea, Gambia, and South Africa arrived to Turkey as a transit country. But mainly we have like people from Somalia, Sudan as well. And 2019 numbers suggest that Somalian nationals follow persons from Afghanistan and Iraq. So there are lots of asylum seekers and refugees from Africa. So most African, there are migrants and refugees, I must tell you. So most African migrants live irregularly in Turkey. And unfortunately, it's very difficult for them to regularize their status as migrants. So it is the refugees and asylum seekers from African countries are relatively in a better situation than the irregular migrants in Turkey in terms of accessing to basic rights. I must also add that asylum seekers and refugees have rights in Turkey. Turkey is signatory to 1951 convention, and they also adopted a law which is giving lots of actually rights to the refugees. However, in practice, this is not the case. We can discuss further, but once you're an asylum seeker or a refugee from Africa or somewhere else, you have access to basic rights, for example, social services, education, and health services. I hope I could answer your question, Hadija.
That was great. Like, yeah, I understand that you mentioned there are 3.6 million Syrian refugees and asylum seekers, also about 330,000 from other nationalities, including Africans.
Right.
So what are the challenges affecting the African refugees and asylum seekers integration in Turkey,
Yeah.
comparing to others from other continents or parts of the world?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I mean, the challenges which refugees from African countries, Hadija, faced are not particularly different from general refugee population's challenge. However, in addition to xenophobia and exclusion based on their skin color, unfortunately, there are several protection concerns which are common among refugees from African countries. So we're really following up very, very closely. And when we see the situation, the Syrian refugees are considered under temporary protection, and sometimes they may have more, I don't want to say more rights, but their rights are better regulated because of the situation. There's a war there. But overall, when you look at the challenges, it's almost same, which I can say you like most of the issues are emanating from if they're unregistered, it's a really big problem. So they can face, if they're irregular in Turkey, they may face irregular migration detention, which is really not good. So we come across African asylum seekers who are stuck at the international airports in Istanbul, and due to irregular entry into Turkey, or sometimes they are using Turkey as a stopover place, you know, while they're trying to go to Europe. So they can be stuck at the airport, and they're calling UNHCR, our office, and we're trying to intervene and try to make sure that their rights are protected. Another problem that I can mention you is survival sex, exploitative work. For example, when they're irregular, or even if they're regular, sometimes the employers do not give them right to work, or they do not document their apply for formal work permit, which is very exploitative. They're given really less salaries, and they're exploited like they're working more than 12 hours sometimes in workplaces. This is the things that we are really coming across, which is really bad. Another problem is that when they are irregular and unregistered, when they face a human rights violation, they don't want to report it to the police, because they believe that once they report this to the police officers, they will be arrested and deported. So these are the main challenges, and they have some limitations in accessing to traditional support mechanism. For example, Turkey has so-called satellite city system. So you can, if you're an asylum seeker from Africa or somewhere else, you cannot live wherever you want. So the Minister of Interior is assigning you some cities, and you have to go there, you have to live there, you have to get registered there. But when you go to a very, very small city with not much opportunities, most of the African refugees or other refugees are coming to Istanbul, and they prefer living irregularly in Istanbul rather than living regularly in a very small city, which is leading to some problems. So they call us, they contact with us, and through the good collaboration under our coordination, we're trying to give response to these people. But this is also very common among refugees from other countries. It's but Africans are also adversely affected. But I can tell you that they have some nationalities have really good communities. So community support is key here. So for example, we have an Eritrean community, we have a Somalian community, we have Sri Lankan community, in different places, they have good communities, they approach to churches, mosques. So I'm really very thankful that not only the government and international um, um, let's say actors are playing a role here, but there are really very good people in Turkey who are hosting and helping refugees. But it's everywhere. There are people who are discriminating, but there are really very generous people who are helping refugees.
All right. After hearing all these challenges, like I don't know how UNHCR contribute to the social cohesion and inclusion of refugees and asylum seekers in Turkey.
Right. Actually, Hadija, that's a very interesting and hard question, because still in the academia, there are lots of discussions on integration, social cohesion. How can we include people in the society? What can be done? So it's a two-way communication for sure. It's not only, we should not expect everything from the asylum seekers or refugees, but it's a twofold thing. So our work on social cohesion is twofold. It's like, I can tell you, it's horizontal and vertical. So in the horizontal social cohesion, um, the among the like, we're trying to see the relations between the host community and the refugees. So it is the horizontal one, and in that one we have some priorities, Hadija, like increasing communication and interaction among refugee and host communities. For example, we're establishing some, for example, women's solidarity groups composed of Turkish women and refugee women, or in other operations that I'm working as well. We're trying to convene both societies, to open a dialogue. And for example, we do mixed livelihoods activities, arts and culture events for children and adults, peer mentorship activities for children and youth. We do men's solidarity groups as well. And we're trying to support positive perception about refugees. We try to use social media really efficiently, and we collaborate with some arts and culture organizations, and we develop some capacity development to school teachers. For example, all of a sudden in Turkey, there were 4 million, around 4 million refugees, and everybody was in shock and they didn't know what to do genuinely. For example, the teachers, because Syrian children or African children can go to schools, and the teachers didn't know what to do, how to work with the foreign children. So we started as UNHCR some capacity development and trainings for the school teachers to how to work together with the refugee children and foreign children. So we are including municipalities as well to convene these two societies. And we do training on community mobilization as well. I would like to underline something very important, Hadija. The strength of the refugees and their power is always undermined, but they're so strong, they're so important for us, and they are the part of solution for us. So UNHCR itself or NGOs itself cannot do enough for refugees. So we are including community leaders, women support groups, men and women refugees in our sources so that they help us and we help them. They're also teaching us lots of things, and it's a very good experience for us to see and work together with them. We have also vertical social cohesion. What does it mean? It means social cohesion among the authorities and the refugees, because they have some rights, but in practice, this may not be the case. So we're trying to strengthen the relations on a vertical basis between the refugees and the authorities as much as possible. We do advocacy, capacity development as well. Yeah, there are lots of things I can tell you, but I don't want to take your time more.
Okay, I would like to congratulate you for the work that you really do
Thank
at
you.
UNHCR in general. But I have another issue about women. Like we know that over half of the 79 million people that I talked about that fled to other parts of their countries or others across the border at the end of 2019 were women. Many were at risk of exploitation, kidnapping by human traffickers, suffered torture, abuse, rape, threatened by knives and guns, deprived from food and water. So I just want you to tell us, please, what are the statistics of men versus women refugees and asylum seekers in Turkey?
It's a very good question, actually, because women are the half of our society, and they are mostly undermined. Their power is undermined in the world, and that's one of our work, is to strengthen women and girls especially. So according to the latest numbers, like around 46.2 of, for example, Syrian refugees in Turkey are women and girls. And the Turkish government has not disclosed gender and age this aggregation of the non-Syrian refugees in Turkey, unfortunately. But in our previous records as UNHCR, while we were doing the registration, half of the refugees are women. And there are also lots of children amongst these people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, in your point of view, what the state of mind of these women arriving in Turkey? I mean,
Yeah,
and their psychological health. How do you find it?
yeah. Khadija, actually, sexual and gender-based violence is a really very grave human rights violation, which exists in all regions of the world, by the way. It's not only Turkey or Middle East or Africa, but everywhere. It's a problem, and it refers to any harm, or harmful act which is perpetrated against one's will, and it may be physical, sexual, psychological, economic harm or pain, including threats of such acts. So it has a really wider definition. And when we look at the definition, most of the women, especially refugee women, today, tomorrow, or yesterday, they're facing this in the country of origin, during their flight, and in the country of asylum. So in the displacement context, the sexual and gender-based violence occurs in countries of origin as a form of persecution. So this is something that we're evaluating to recognize the refugee status of women. But I would like to also add child marriage, child labor. I mean, I have seen lots of girls at the age of 15, 16, they're forced to child labor, and it's really very sad. And we're really prioritizing women issues more, because migration itself is very traumatizing itself. Merely being a migrant or a refugee is very traumatizing. And now we're trying to develop some programs, Adija, twofold. Um, like from our partners and from UNHCR, we're trying to extend some psychological assistance, legal assistance, this kind of accommodation assistance together with the government. But as I said, it's really the resources are very limited for women. We are placing some women to women shelters, but sometimes when you look at the issues, uh, for the local women, for the host country, host community as well, women's shelters are not enough, which is really increasing the risk of violations against women, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's so sad to hear that, but you know, like to alleviate this and to what UNHCR have any competencies or entrepreneurship programs for women economic empowerment, at least to help them in the other side, like economy participation in general. Like I'm talking about for men and women in general.
Right, right. I mean, strengthening women and also overall refugees is one of our key priority. Like in the past, as UNHCR, we were mainly dealing with the international protection, legal matters, access to basic rights. But in the recent years, we are concentrating and focusing on development issues. We have this human rights and development nexus. So we started opening some entrepreneurship programs through our partners. We provide online entrepreneurship training to refugees and host community members. So we're trying to include both communities, because this is a part of our social cohesion activity as well. So we are having two purposes here. So the training topics are including, but not limited to, web design, introduction to digital world, website setting, web safety, this kind of programs we have. And we have also competency-based programs, Hadija, like language training for different levels, job readiness and like soft skills training such as CV writing, interview techniques, and workplace safety. We do lots of vocation trainings, depending on the needs of the labor market. So what we do is that we're not just opening up courses, but we are always consulting with the others, especially the development actors and the market. We see what are the gaps in the market. So we open the courses and trainings in accordance with the needs of the market so that they can find jobs.
Oh, wow, that's good. So, who look after their children while they are learning new skills or taking language classes and so on?
Yeah, this is a subject that we were really working so
All
hard.
women are facing, yeah, all around the world.
Yeah, it's a very difficult question, like even if you establish programs, that if they cannot attend the program, then what's the point? So we have like implementing partner NGOs that we're funding, and they have child-friendly spaces. So we are discussing with them to open up child-friendly spaces. So when the mother is in the language course, the children are playing with our colleagues in the other room. This is really something that we are proud of achieving. So in some of our programs, we could manage that, but in some places we could not because it's really costly. So we're trying to find ways to increase the number of child-friendly spaces. Another thing that we're doing is that there are kindergartens in the municipalities or government-run kindergartens. So it was for only nationals. So what we did and what we're doing is we are advocating for the inclusion of refugee children in those child-friendly spaces or kindergartens so that the mothers and women have more freedom to attend such capacity development activities, Hadija.
Okay, so that's really good. So, does UNHCR work in collaboration with other partners and stakeholders to implement and manage these programs, or you are doing it on your own?
Of course, I mean, UNHCR alone, yes, we are the lead agency in refugee protection, but our work involves many different sectors, which we are not experts. So I'm very thankful to our partners, and we have lots of partners from the government, from the ministries, from the NGOs who are expert on specific subjects, and the municipalities as well. So we work very closely with the governmental and non-governmental partners, but as well as refugees, because we learn a lot from refugees. Whenever we start a program, Hadija, we conduct a focus group discussion with the refugees, asking them what is their need, what are the needs, what kind of programs would be good for them, or what is their suggestions to us, not in the beginning, but in every stage of our programs. And we are also telling the government to do that too, as a good practice to consult with refugees in every stage. I think this is really important, and it's more dignified for the
Yeah,
refugees too.
yeah, that's good. It's good to make everybody participate in the process, really. So,
Yeah.
yeah, another thing that really is alarming is the numbers of children that are displaced than the, well, I can give you some statistics. The more children are displaced than the population of Senegal plus Singapore plus Switzerland combined. So like in 2019, an estimated 30 to 34 million children were living in displacement. This is almost half of the world displaced people. And many children fled without their parents or were separated from them while seeking safety. So unaccompanied, they are at risk of exploitation and abuse. Displaced children should not miss out on their childhood, as we all know. They should be able to learn, play, and grow up with their families. So, could you please share with us and with our audience the statistics of accompanied and unaccompanied children, refugees, and
Right,
asylum
right.
seekers in Turkey?
Right. As I said about the statistics, our resources, I mean, UNHCR resources are good in terms of like once we register the persons, we have the breakdowns. But in the last couple of years, we handed over the registration activity to the Turkish government. That's why, I mean, we don't have a very detailed information, but I can tell you right now, there are like 1.6 million children registered under the temporary protection in Turkey as a refugee, as an asylum seeker. And this number includes all children, by the way, like accompanied minors, unaccompanied minors, or separated children, you know. So there are different groups of children. They can be with their families or without any family support. And when we look at this, when it's like 1.6 million, it's almost like 45% of the refugees in Turkey, which is a really big number. And when you consider that these children, most of them, if they're out of school, really for the future considerations, it's really very worrying. Likewise, there are no official statistics on the number of unaccompanied refugee children, but I can tell you that there are 2 child support centers in Istanbul, and that they're hosting asylum seeker children, which is important. For example, some of them are 0 to 12 age, 12 to 18, you know, like adolescents and young children are hosted by the Turkish government if they are unaccompanied minors. Again, I mean, we work closely with the government and we refer children. For example, when we identify an unaccompanied refugee children on the street or somewhere else, we are taking care of the child in terms of their asylum applications, but we work hand in hand with our NGOs and the government to place these children to child support centers. So far, we identified that together with the government 2,000 unaccompanied minors. But I must tell you that many of them are not registered, and they're attempting to cross the borders to go to Europe. And my assumption, personal assumption, is that many children are not in our radar, which is very worrying. We are intensifying our work to increase this number, but still there are lots of children that they're not in our radar.
Yeah,
So
it's so sad to hear that.
yeah,
So sad. So, do you ensure children education inside the camps or in Turkish school? Because you mentioned earlier kindergarten and playground and stuff. So,
yeah,
do you
mhm,
for
mhm,
accompanied and unaccompanied? Because you talked a
yeah.
bit about unaccompanied. So, yeah.
Right, right. Uh, During the times that there were many refugees in the camp context, you know, the Minister of National Education opened up temporary education centers in the camps, which was really good. But in the urban, it was more challenging because, again, there were some temporary education places, either private or by the state. But now, all children in Turkey, regardless of their status, refugee, migrant, or national, they have the right to access to school. So this is under the regulations and laws, they have access. But when you see in the practice, the national resources of Turkey are very, very stretched. So there are not enough classrooms. There are not enough opportunities for all children to be hosted in the schools. So what we're trying to do is that when we identify any children out of school, we are coordinating with the government and trying to place these children in schools. But they need support. They need financial support. Many children in Istanbul are victim of child labor. So how can we protect these children? So what we did recently in the last 5 years is that we coordinated with the social services of the government and we started funding some of the programs. So what we did is that we were giving cash assistance to some refugee families so that the child is not going to work, but instead goes to school. So this was a very good program. But again, in Istanbul, we could target like 3,500 children, which is again not a big number. I mean, yes, the program is successful, but when we try to expand the program, it's really very limited. As UNHCR, we also support UNICEF's Back to School campaign, again aiming to strengthen refugee children's school enrollment. But we have lots to do to ensure that children goes back to school. Like when they're out of school, especially pediatrists and many pedagogists are also saying that, like when they're out of school more than 3 years, Hadija, they cannot go back. They don't, like, it's not that they cannot go back, but once they are distant to the school, it's very hard to take the child
Yeah.
back to the school life.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. And the same thing for like over to 8 years old. Do you have any training programs for them and for teenagers?
Yes, actually, we about youth, we have nice programs, but again, it's limited, but it's creative programs for adolescent children. And together with our partners, we offer preparatory courses for refugee children getting ready for higher education exams, because in Turkey and in some places there are higher education exams, especially during COVID-19 outbreak. These courses are being offered online so that these children can follow that, up. But going back to your previous question, now it came to my mind. Many education systems, are online right now during the COVID-19 outbreak. So children who have computers, who could have Wi-Fi's, could continue their education well. But the poor host community and most of the refugee children could not do that. So one of the activities that we were trying to do, that trying to provide this technical support to refugees, and we were advocating for everyone as well to support refugee children and poor host community to attend the classes online. So yes, we support refugee youth, their referral to higher education in Turkey, and we have youth support groups as well, and some mentoring classes that we have opened in Istanbul in some provinces.
Okay, yeah. So I just wanted to take you back to talk about violence against women. So I know that many illegal African migrant as women, as you mentioned early on, are subject to discrimination, violence, abuse, harassment, rape, and so on, and cannot report this act of violence due to fear of deportation. And also, the same case, Turkish women are subject to domestic violence that goes unreported due to fear, and even if they report to police, the case remains inactive without response of persecution or perpetrators. This the same case in all around the world. It's not just Turkey or Morocco or anywhere. Is the same thing. So I have this question: is why is that the case in Turkey, especially that the Turkey has signed the Istanbul Convention against violence against women and domestic violence. Myself, I in my capacity of Deputy President of ENLW, International Network of Liberal Women, I advocate for the ratification for the Istanbul Convention and to be signed by all other countries that didn't sign it. So it's something really that I work for and advocate for. So I have this question for you, if you might answer it, please. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Hadija. That's a very meaningful question, and I'm really proud of your activities as a women colleague, as a women friend, because we really should uphold the women's rights. As you said, the convention is known as Istanbul Convention because it was signed in Istanbul, and Turkey is one of the first signatories. But it has been so controversial lately because some of the persons in the government, in the ruling party, they started discussing whether to withdraw our signature from the Istanbul Convention, which created really tensions within the women's support groups and in the society. And Istanbul Convention is the first text in international law which focuses on violence against women in such a comprehensive manner. It's a very, very important international legal framework, and it has 4 pillars like prevention, protection, prosecution, and policies. And why is it very important, not only as a woman, but as a UNHCR staff, is that it recognized the gender-based violence against women as a form of persecution, and it puts it within the realm of the principle of non-refoulement, which is the prohibition of to return back a woman who can face persecution in the country of origin as a woman. So Istanbul Convention, in my opinion, supports the 1951 Geneva Convention relating to the rights of the refugees. This is very important for us. So after Turkey signed it, they also passed a law, the national law, which is called Prevention of Violence Against Women. It was enacted in 2012. And it's a really very good law, by the way. Our main problem is the implementation. And there are so many women, and there are so many women killed in Turkey by their husbands, by their partners, by men. And which is showing us that the legal framework is there, but we're not doing enough, not only in Turkey, but throughout the world to protect women as much as possible. And this is really very sad. In this century, still we are discussing this situation of women. So, I mean, we are trying to support the efforts of the women NGOs and women solidarity groups of refugees. What we do is that we're trying to mainstream refugee protection to actors working in the area of women protection. We are seeking the help of women NGOs as well, and we're trying to mainstream gender-based violence in every sector. Because if we just talk about women's rights, it's not going to be enough, but we should mainstream it. For example, in food security, in entrepreneurship programs, in health programs, in every stage of protection, which is all different aspects of human rights. We are trying to mainstream the gender-based violence prevention and response as UNHCR staff. This is something very sensitive to us, Hadija, and a very sensitive and a sad subject in these days, especially.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And from here we should urge all the NGOs to continue fighting, for this convention to be implemented, because most countries that signed it, they haven't implemented it really in the field. So, and it's push women to stay silent, and they're frightened to really report any act of violence. We'll go to talk about another subject, which is the COVID-19, the coronavirus pandemic. So, in these very difficult times, states are understandably doing what they can do to protect public health. However, measures to tackle COVID-19 do not justify arbitrary detention of refugees and asylum seekers. Some states are using the pandemic to justify aggressive measures, like detaining refugees and asylum seekers in greater numbers or for longer or arbitrary periods of time. So, states must ensure their action are in line with the international law, and amidst the ongoing coronavirus pandemic, vulnerable refugees are not being placed at heightened unnecessary risk. So we are concerned that many are often forced to live in one crowded and unsanitary living conditions, which not only worsen the misery of people who have already suffered so much, but also undermines effort to limit the spread of the virus. So could you
Right.
please, Celine, share with us your views on this issue, and how the Republic of Turkey is managing this situation? Also, what measures are taken? Did or how COVID-19 interrupt the registration of refugees and asylum seekers in Turkey?
Right. Yeah. Thank you very much, Hadija. Actually, it's a very, very interesting times we are going through. I mean, COVID-19 pandemic is teaching us lots of things, like, yes, it's really challenging for everyone, but for the poor host community and refugees and those who are vulnerable, it's way more challenging. And but there are really good sides and very negative sides of the story, unfortunately. And I mean, first of all, you told about detention. It's obvious that taking measures against COVID-19 should not be an excuse for states in arbitrarily deport or detain asylum seekers or migrants, or detain them in inhuman conditions. As a matter of fact, given the nature of the COVID-19 pandemic, overcrowded reception and detention conditions are extremely dangerous for them. And or executing deportation orders may also lead to further spread of the virus. So states should really take into consideration all these important facts. And in many countries, I see that some deportations stopped, but still overcrowded detention facilities are risking their lives. With good faith and creativity, let's say, a country can both secure public health and the rights of asylum. They can do this. It's possible. So they can, for example, impose measures at the borders, such as like health screening, testing, quarantine, self-isolation. These are all the things that they can really do it very, very easily to secure the lives of refugees. In that regard, I must tell you, Turkey really, in terms of the healthcare, Turkey has been doing really well in a way with regards to their health facilities, but there are also lots of rooms to improve in Turkey with regards to the response in the health sector. So, I mean, refugees have access once they're registered or unregistered, even in the COVID-19 pandemic. They have access to healthcare during the pandemic, which is something good, I can tell you. The two main good practices in Turkey is that there is also implementing is that they suspended deportations and they decongested detention facilities during the pandemic. So we were, as UNHCR, closely following up those detention centers, whether they comply with the hygiene and COVID-19 measures. And in addition to that, detention facilities have implemented really significant measures to ensure hygiene and social distancing. But still, I think this is something that until the vaccinations are found, this is something that all states should be really very cautious about and do not undermine the rights of people with the excuse of COVID-19. Hope I
Yeah,
could answer your question.
yeah, you did greatly. But the coronavirus pandemic has reminded us how interconnected we all are, and importance of leaving no one behind. The virus does not discriminate, meaning it affects everyone, the poor, the rich, everybody, and all around the world. However, those forcibly displaced are exposed and they often live in crowded, as you mentioned, and substandard conditions, lacking basic services, including access to clean water, basic sanitation, or health facilities. So, how, Selena, does UNHCR help these vulnerable refugees and asylum seekers in need during this pandemic? And what actions has been taken by UNHCR Turkey?
Mhm. It's a very interesting question, Hadija, because yesterday I was talking with my colleagues and we were discussing what changed in our life after COVID-19. Are we working less or more? For sure, we're working double right now. And all of a sudden, when we're in the lockdown, it was really very difficult for everyone and for us. And it was a really big question, what are we going to do now? But UNHCR really quickly adapted itself um, to the new situation in order to respond the very unique situation of the pandemic. So what we did is that we, even before the pandemic actually, we had some very good online programs,
Okay.
which was very easy for us to adjust to the situation. And we had really good video programs even before COVID. So it made our life really easier. But it was not easy for us to reach out to the refugees, and which is the biggest problem in such cities like Istanbul. It's 16 million population, Hadija, and it's so difficult for us to reach out to refugees. So we're adopting different system, not only one solution, but we're trying to create different solutions for that. First of all, we continue our advocacy for inclusion of refugees in the government-led COVID-19 specific socioeconomic support, because um, as soon as the lockdown started, Turkish government extended assistance to its nationals uh, for food assistance, for some material assistance. So we were advocating for the inclusion of refugees to those programs of the municipalities or the ministries, let's say, and we managed to do that. For example, we had a very good program with the Istanbul Metropolitan Municipality that they started paying the bills, utility bills of poor host community. And we
Wow.
included the refugees in that because wealthy people were volunteering to pay those debts.
Okay.
And the municipality was organizing this. So as UNHCR, we included refugees in this program, so their utility bills are paid because they could not pay it. They could not work. They have daily wages, which was lacking in COVID-19. So, and another thing that we did as UNHCR Turkey operation is we did COVID-19 emergency cash assistance, and in close coordination with the immigration department of Turkey, we were extending some cash support to some households whom we were prioritizing, the most needy ones, not everyone. Again, it was limited, but we could target at least very vulnerable families. And we also did distribution of hygiene items, again, through social services and through municipalities and our partners, because we were really combining our efforts in such distribution. And what we did is that we worked with the governorate, municipality, and what we did is also we intensified our communication channels with the refugees. We started establishing WhatsApp trees so that we could distribute more information, and we were intensifying our social media platforms in a more active manner. We have been really proactive in such platforms now, so that we can inform refugees of what we are doing. And we also supported refugee-led responses, and we continued our coordination, and we really gave utmost importance to information dissemination, because mostly there is a program which is good, but the refugees don't know that. So it was very important for us to keep that communication channels live and more efficient. We did like Instagram, we were using Instagram through our partners. We were continuing our child activities through Instagram live programs as such, you know. So we did a lot since the beginning of the pandemic, but still I always see the dark side of the photo and say that we should do more and more.
Yes, I mean, everywhere is still a lot to be done, really, but by cooperating with each other and with other agencies, like, is there any inter-agency coordination during this COVID-19 outbreak with you, UNHCR?
Right. Actually, before the pandemic as well, we have an interagency coordination on international protection, which is led by UNHCR. And what we do is that we, all of a sudden, literally the next day after the lockdown, we carried out our interagency meetings to online platform. And we started, for example, we were doing the meetings, conducting the meetings once a month, and we started doing twice a week, which was really very important for us. So we have like protection working group, we have subgroups such as women and children groups, you know, we do mapping exercises, and we have many thematic groups as well that we were instantly sharing information, because at that time, some of the NGOs and UNHCR, we could have some additional funding. So we need to coordinate really well in order to respond to the COVID-19 situation. For example, we established a COVID-19 task team with the information materials we compiled. We translated to 7 different languages that refugees are using, so that we could be quick and responsive to everyone on online platforms.
Oh, wow, that's really great effort you've done. So I will take you back again to talk about the African continent. So as the African Network for Sustainable Development focus on the African continent, could you please explain to our audience the Going Back Home for Cash incentive to encourage African migrants to go back home? Because
Right,
it's
right.
really made
Yeah.
for African, I think, is that incentive. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I'm really happy that I'm here amongst all participants who are from ANCD, because Africa has a special place in my heart. I worked in Uganda and South Sudan border in a refugee camp, and there like couple of months I had the chance to work really closely with the African refugees. I was always meeting African refugees, but working in a camp situation and in such very risky environment, it was really a very um, different experience that I learned a lot from refugees and my colleagues in Africa. So if I go back to your question, going back home for cash actually is an incentive under the program of the EU and IOM joint initiative. So International Organization for Migration and EU has a joint program. So UNHCR is not a part of it, but we are closely monitoring and closely following that up, because we are always underlining the fact that our persons of concern, who are those who need international protection, is very important. That's why we work hand in hand with IOM. So this initiative offers cash support as well as counseling and reintegration support to African migrants who are willing to return back to their countries. So the program is about this. So this initiative was launched, I think, in 2016, and it was under the EU emergency fund for Africa, and within the understanding of protect and assist migrants in a dignified manner with safe routes back to Africa. So this ensures migrants who are deciding to return to their countries of origin with their own will, by the way. So it's not a forced return. So our colleagues in the IOM are quite careful in ensuring that returns are not non-voluntary. Like, this is very important that we always underline. So along with this cash support, as far as I know, this initiative includes supporting the reintegration process as well when they go back. And so they are trying to include the psychological and socioeconomic part of the problem as well, and they're trying to strengthen social cohesion activities too. It's not just sending people back to their countries voluntarily, but supporting them not only with cash but other programs too. So I mean, this EU IOM joint initiative, they cooperate with, as far as I know, 26 African countries, and in the Sahel and Lake Chad, Horn of Africa, North Africa. That's what I know. But however, Turkey is not a part of this initiative, I must tell you. So this is composed of 26 countries, but in other countries like Turkey, IOM is in coordination with some funds of some countries. It can be EU funding, it can be something else. They have assistance voluntary return programs, which we call in short AVR. So in this AVR program, which I have been observing as well in the places that I'm working, they started around like 2009, and they're helping these people. It can be migrants, people who wants to return back. It can be any country. So they're giving assistance to including African refugees, but they're not as, how can I say, as wide as the Going Back Home for Cash program. But there are some AVR programs, as long as they have the budgets. So this is another question. For example, sometimes it's very, very project-based. If, let's say, just an example, UK is supporting IOM for voluntary return of, let's say, Afghans back to their country, then they allocate a budget to IOM to do this activity. If there's no budget, then it's really difficult to do this program.
Yeah.
So it depends on project-based.
I find it very interesting initiative, or like, so people could go, they encourage them to go back, and then they help them to start their life again from scratch with the money, do a little project or something, so economic empowerment. So it's great. Celine, I want to talk to you now about an incident that happened a while ago, I think in February or March this year, 2020, that all the international news and media were talking about it this year. So I know that UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, has appealed for calm and easing of tension on Turkey's border with the European Union in light of the present increased movement of people there, including refugees and asylum seekers. So in Greece, the UNHCR team reported the arrival of some 1,200 people on the 1st of March and the 2nd of March of this year, morning on the East Aegean Island. I don't know if I pronounced it well. So Lesbos, Chios, I think, and Samos, higher than the recent daily rate. So all states have a right to control their borders and manage regular movement, but at the same time should refrain from the use of excessive or disproportionate force and maintain systems for handling asylum requests in an orderly manner. UNHCR has urged Greece to investigate multiple reports of pushbacks by Greek authorities at the country's sea and land borders, possibly returning migrants and asylum seekers to Turkey after they had reached Greek territory or territorial waters. UNHCR has continuously addressed its concern with the Greek government and has called for urgent inquiries into series of alleged incidents reported in the media, many of which um, uh, cooperated by non-government organizations, and direct testimonies. Such allegations have increased since March, and reports indicate that several groups of people might have been summarily returned after reaching Greek territories, like about some 3,000 asylum seekers arrive in Greece by land and sea, as you know, since the start of March, a precipitous drop from previous months and compared to previous years. So yet the number of reported pushbacks, particularly at sea, has been rising. Um, Greece has the legitimate right to control its borders and manage regular migration while respecting international human rights and refugees protection standards. As you know, controls and practices must guarantee the right of asylum seekers, and they should not be turned away at Greece borders. So the Hellenic Coast Guard has shown exceptional dedication and courage to save countless refugee and migrant lives at sea. However, the present allegations go against Greece's international obligation and can expose people to grave danger. The right to seek and enjoy asylum is fundamental, and all asylum seekers should be provided with access to asylum procedures and protection from refoulement or informal forced return. So, Selena, how is UNHCR monitoring development in Turkey and in Greece, and how or what UNHCR is offering or did offer at that time, like in its support to refugees and asylum seekers? And as it's all such situation, it is important that the authorities refrain from any measure that might increase the suffering of vulnerable people. If you can share some, shed some light into this, because so many people at that time and even still now still puzzled with this situation. If you can explain it, please.
Right, right. Thank you very much, Hadija. You made really very good points while you were asking the question. At the end of February, for 3 weeks, I was at the border. I was witnessing the situation, refugee situation there. And like literally day and night, me and my team were on the ground observing all what happened there in the border with Greece and Turkey. We were in the land borders and sea borders as well. So it's one of my area of responsibility to cover the northwest region of Turkey. So we are covering the land borders and sea borders as well, which I have been traveling and going for many years here, and unfortunately witnessed many situations there. So just before the COVID-19 pandemic, the whole team of UNHCR, we were at the border and we witnessed really very sad incidents. And we were ourselves, together with the refugees, were subject to really very difficult days, I must tell you. I was really very traumatized, I must confess, because like at the end of the 3 weeks, COVID-19 was there, and we had to retreat and go back to our homes for lockdown for both refugees and for both UNHCR staff and NGO staff. So it was really very traumatic days for us. But just to tell you in short, UNHCR Turkey, we have been engaged in various initiatives at the borders and activities. We do monitoring the situation, we analyze, we report it. We are using many different information materials to understand the pushbacks, the trends at the borders. We are coordinating together with our colleagues in Greece and colleagues in Bulgaria to see the situation on a tripartite basis. We always meet with them, and we are in close dialogue with them in terms of informing each other of what's happening at the other side of the border, because refugees and migrants are victims of smuggling, trafficking, and the human rights violations that can be done by any side there. So our work is to closely monitor the situation. Overall, we focus, like in Turkey operation, we focus on border issues for a very long time, because it's a very, very hot area and hot potato, by the way. It's really very sensitive as it concerns, I mean, 2 or 3 countries there, including EU, including sea borders and Hellenic Coast Guards, which we're trying to do lots of capacity building to enhance the understanding of human rights against security. So this is one of the things in the world that's going worse and worse every day. I know the governments have a security concern, but I think as a human rights lawyer as well as a UNHCR staff, we always underline that those who are vulnerable, who needs protection, should be protected and identified during this kind of sad incidents and border crossings. So this is not an excuse for any state to ignore the rights of refugees. So I'm talking just generally. Some countries are really very generous, opening their doors, their thresholds are really low for refugees, which is good, But to go back to what we're doing, we coordinate really well with the Coast Guards, with the Turkish land forces, gendarmerie, police. We're training them to explain what it means to be a refugee and how they should be treated in the international law. Likewise, my colleagues in the Greek side are doing the same thing. So these people are treated fairly and in a dignified manner. Of course, pushback incidents are not dignified. They are grave human rights violations, and we do not want to, of course, observe these kind of sad incidents. So we are also coordinating with the bar associations, Hadija. I think UNHCR's efforts alone is not sufficient, but challenging all these things in the national and international courts are, I think, very important. During the monitoring, we are trying to adopt different systems, because the land borders and the sea borders are really very long, and it's really difficult for everyone to physically monitor the place. When I say monitoring, it's impossible for us to physically monitor it, because we're not a security apparatus, we are not security officials, but we really coordinate well with the all stakeholders in the region to understand what's going on. Even with let's say that in the borders there are very small villages, that the refugees and migrants are passing. We're going there, talking with the locals, to understand what happened here. Were they pushed back? What happened to there? And what we do also is that we're trying to record the violations. Whenever we hear, we conduct interviews with the refugees to understand what happened to them. And we regularly go to the borders, we see the trends, we inform our Europe Bureau, we inform our Greek colleagues, the colleagues in Greece, and we're trying to give them legal assistance. And we're trying to also improve the reception conditions, because when a person is pushed back or they cross the border and they have children, sometimes they have health problems. There are women amongst these persons who are crossing. So we are trying to improve the reception conditions of the government officials, so that they're treated fairly, they're treated in a human way, which I can say in many situations, because I traveled to Greece, I traveled to Bulgaria to see the conditions there. We're always encouraging the governments. And I would like to tell you one more thing. We are acknowledging the difficulties of the governments in this situation, because humans are mobile, and it's really very difficult to keep the borders safe, and to manage the migration is very difficult. So avoiding migration is not the key, but managing migration is the key key thing for us. So that's why in our discussions with the government officials, we always say that please do not ignore it. Please do not prevent it, but manage the situation together with UN agencies and other important actors here. I hope I could answer your question,
Yes,
but
you
this
did
is one of my.
perfectly. You gave us a great explanation, and I hope that my audience are satisfied with it too, as I am satisfied. So, before we conclude, Celine, I have one question here from our best friend. You know who? Felice. She
Oh, I think she's online.
is
Hi,
online watching
Felice.
us. It's proof that she's watching us. Hi, Felice.
Hi,
The
Felice.
question is, how refugees affected from coronavirus in Turkey? Have you any data?
It's a very important question, and unfortunately, we don't have any data about that. But and we are trying to, whenever we have information about uh, persons of concern affected from coronavirus, we are really trying to keep the information confidential, because when I say confidential, we of course need to ask the consent of the refugee whether he or she wants to share this information. So of course we work in close coordination with Minister of Health, but with regards to the data, it is very sensitive, and we don't have the data, unfortunately. But what we do is we are intensifying our work on prevention activities. For example, with the Istanbul Metropolitan Municipality, and in our entrepreneurship programs, the first week in the lockdown, we were encouraging refugees as well for the production of masks, because at that time there were some question of lack of masks, hygiene kits.
Yeah.
So we were distributing for prevention. But as for the data, unfortunately, we don't have enough data, or official data. I can tell you, it's the Minister of Health who is holding those data, and yeah, we can maybe try to ask them again to get this information.
Yeah,
But
and
unfortunately, because most of the refugees do not have the means to protect themselves, because when we talk about lockdown, when the all governments in the world tells us stay at home,
yeah,
that's a big luxury, as you know, Khadija. Staying
yeah,
at home is a luxury. One of the lessons I learned during the pandemic is that we are so lucky. Many people were saying that I'm bored in the lockdown. I'm sorry, do you want to work in the emergency section of the hospital rather than staying at your home? Or do you want to be a worker who wants to work, who is working 12 hours in a very crowded place?
mm,
So overall, I want to tell that we are quite lucky that we have home, we have a bed, we have all these opportunities to protect ourselves, while many refugees, many migrants have to work and expose themselves to COVID-19. So to answer Phyllis' question, um, comparing the situation of the economic situation of refugees with those who doesn't need to work outside, I think the rates can be really higher than the other people. I don't know, but because they're working, they have to work, they continue working, or sometimes some of them are fired from their works after the pandemic because of the economic situation of the employers. So this is a very difficult situation for everyone. I hope I could answer your question.
yeah. Well, the coronavirus has made us, all of us, auto-evaluate our life,
Great.
our priorities in life, and to feel really, I mean, not to take things for granted, because we want more and more and more, and we should really compare ourselves to the least, the most vulnerable people, and thank God for all what we have, and share what we have with others, really, if we can, and help others, really. So, Celine, last but not least, I have two last little questions for you. So, what is
Please.
your message today for new refugees and asylum seekers still on their way to host countries?
Oh, yeah, it's a very important and a big question. I always believe that being a refugee is something very courageous. Refugees and migrants are very strong people, leaving your beloved ones, leaving your home country. and taking that risk, on the road, by boat, by walking, by exposing yourself to exploitation of many um, smugglers is not easy. This is it takes a big courage, I think. So I believe refugees and migrants are very strong people, and they're champions. When they could make it to Turkey, or when they could make it to a country where they seek safety, I really feel very emotional when I see what they went through to
Yeah.
get there. That's very emotional for all of us to see that they took so many risks with their children. You see the photos in the boats, in the Asian Sea, in other places, in the other parts of the places. Some people say that I wouldn't risk my child, I wouldn't risk my children, and I'm replying back saying that, the violations or the problems in your life is coming to a stage that you're even risking your family's life. So we should really understand and put ourselves in their shoes, and see why they're choosing this way. Maybe going back to the international law world, like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights explicitly recognizes one's right to seek and enjoy asylum in other countries, and be free from persecution. All of us have the right to do that. You never know, everyone can be a refugee. It's one of our posters that we always say, everyone can be a refugee one day. So it's very important to put ourselves in their shoes, and we work to support governments in facilitating refugees' access to rights as foreseen in human rights law and refugee law and all humanitarian law instruments. And being a refugee is a status. However, uh, it's not the best way. It's always good for them to have national national connections with
No,
states.
home.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, to feel home.
That's your
So
message to states hosting the refugees and asylum seekers. That's exactly your message to state hosting the refugees and asylum seekers. It should be more like
yeah,
connect, connecting. Yeah.
yeah, and it's like rather than a message to refugees, I also would like to underline something. The states are not sharing this responsibility equally. That's one of the reasons UNHCR is working very heavily on the Global Compact on Refugees, which is a very important document for us. So it's underlining the urgent need for more equitable sharing of the responsibility with the hosting countries. Like when you look at Uganda, they're hosting 1.4 million refugees, or Turkey 4 million, Lebanon like more than 1 million. Look at their situation. I really feel very very sad for my sisters and brothers in Lebanon, and they're hosting so many Syrian refugees, and they face so many unfortunate incidents lately. So my message to the states are to share this responsibility equally for a better world, actually, and so that refugees and everyone has better rights. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I must say, Selen, this was an amazing chat. Really, deep, very enriching and heavy talk that I really enjoyed personally so much.
Thank you.
I'm sure that all our viewers that are interested in human rights and international laws would have enjoyed it too. So I will take advantage of this moment to ask all our dear audience to share this interview in social media amongst your friends and network to reach more people and more groups that will learn a lot from today's talk. Like Celine, I'm so grateful that you accepted to be with us today. It was so wonderful and great to have you with us today. And I would like to thank you again.
I thank you. I thank you, Hadija, for giving me this opportunity to make my voice heard to all the participants. And I would like to thank everybody who participated, who listened to our journey, actually, refugees journey. So this is very meaningful for me. And I would like to first thank ANCD, thank you, the initiatives that you're doing. It's so meaningful. And I hope I could contribute a bit to your efforts. So that's why I'm really very happy that you invited me to this forum and the platform. Thank you so much, Hadija. This is a very meaningful day for me.
Oh, we're really so happy and honored to have you with us. And I'm sure you made the day for many, many refugees, and you explained the situation and you made so clear a lot of situation. I'm so grateful to you. And thank you again. And thank our audience as well for being with us. And I wish you all nice evening and a great weekend. And please stay tuned for our next talks. And I would like to say, take care, everybody, and stay well and safe during this coronavirus pandemic. And Celine, I hope to see you soon, either in Morocco, Turkey, or Washington.
We will visit each other after
When
the
the borders
pandemic.
are open and the pandemic is over. So I wish you a great
Inshallah.
evening, inshallah.
Inshallah.
And bye bye
Inshallah.
now, everybody. Thank you again for everything. Thank you. Thank you for being
Thank
with
you
us.
very much, Hadija. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.